Do you want to know how long a copyright lasts? Do you want to know whether a work that could have been copyrighted was never registered? Do you want to know how to determine whether a copyright was not renewed? Do you want to know the rules for works from different foreign countries? Do you want to find out whether a use you have in mind would constitute fair use under the law? Are you going to deal with a work that has derivative works? These are all subjects in this series of videos. This video is on how to research the status of a copyright using material made available by the United States Copyright Office. Going to the Copyright Office's Search Copyright Information page, look under Online Records, click Search the Catalog, and that will bring you to the page where the records are. Here's where we can look for copyright renewals for works initially copyrighted in 1951 or later. We put in the title of an Alfred Hitchcock classic movie from 1951. Click Begin Search, and we'll scroll through these records. We see at the top of the list quite a number of records that aren't even titled Strangers on a Train, but as we scroll through, starting with number 11 on the left, we see the video editions of Strangers on a Train. As we come to records number 24 and 25, we see two renewal registrations. You can tell they're renewal registrations because there are these numbers. They start with the letters RE followed by numbers. And after clicking on number 24, we see that the copyright claimant is Warner Brothers. They are the company that originally copyrighted the film in 1951, and we see that a 1979 renewal date. 1979 is entirely appropriate for a 1951 registration because it's 28 years later. We now put in a second Alfred Hitchcock movie. It's just a single word, so it's not surprising we have 527 responses. That's way too many to scroll through. So we click Set Search Limits. So we're going to limit our search to those where 1958 is the date. We click Set Search Limits here. And this time, instead of having 527 entries, we have just 7. We can deal with that. At the top of the list, we see a number of renewals, but they are for music from the film. Number 3 and number 6 on this list, number 3 and number 6 on the basis of those numbers you see on the left, are for the movie. So let's look at both of them to determine whether there is a valid renewal for the movie Vertigo. We see a 1958 registration, a 1986 renewal date. Now it's 1986, it's 28 years later, so that's appropriate. And we see that Hitchcock's daughter filed. We also see that it says CO correspondence. That means Copyright Office correspondence. So they question something about this renewal registration. For the time being, let's look at number 6. For number 6, we see that Universal claimed copyright renewal. And Universal acquired the movies that had been owned by Alfred Hitchcock. Paramount had originally been a co-registrant in 1958 because they were releasing Hitchcock's movies at the time. So this looks like a valid renewal. Now notice it says search limits are in effect until you click to clear them. That's in purple here. Let's clear them, because otherwise that could mess up our next search attempt. We're going to put in an Academy Award winning Best Picture, Gigi. We're going to click Begin Search. Once again, we have a title. That's a single word, so it's not surprising we have 454 entries. That's way too many. And we see a bunch of things here that are not the movie. So let's click Set Search Limits again. And we want to put in the year this movie was copyrighted. It's 1958 again. Set Search Limits.
Hey, you could have saved yourself the trouble of clearing 1958.
Yes, we could, but it's good practice to clear it so you don't get confused. Now we see here that a number of the songs from the movie were renewed. You can tell they were renewed because it's RE in front of a number in that second to last column. Looks like the movie is number 2 on this list, so we click number 2. And we see that MGM UA Entertainment is a copyright claimant for the renewal, and they are a successor to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's holding company, which was Loews Incorporated, so this looks entirely appropriate. We click Next to see what happens when you click Next. This is a music record, and you can see this looks like a valid record as well. We're going to try a film that has both 1951 and 1952 dates, depending upon which source. It's called About Face. We're going to set search limits as we did before, but this time we're going to put in a range of dates, 1951, 1952. You could actually put in a lot of years if you wanted to. We click Set Search Limits. We see 11 entries. That's not too many to look them all over. Looks like the film itself is the first on the list, followed by a number of songs from the movie. These are all renewal records. There isn't any record showing of any other kind. And we see here that the film was copyrighted in 1952, but on the film itself it says, in notice, 1951. So the year 1979 was the appropriate year for the renewal because that is 28 years after 1951. We have to go by the earlier year. For evidence that it's necessary to renew a copyright based on the earlier date, consider the case of another film that has a 1951 date in the copyright notice on the film itself, but which was registered in 1952. That other film is The Road to Bali. CopyrightData.com has a page that discusses this situation with documentation. The copyright holders did not attempt to renew copyright until 1980, at which time it was too late. We're going to put in the title of yet another 1958 film, Plan 9 from Outer Space. We put in a numeral 9 in the title because a numeral 9 appears on the title screen of the film itself. As we scroll through our 23 entries, we notice a number of V's at the beginning of the copyright numbers. These indicate video release versions. However, we are interested in knowing whether there is a renewal. We find on number 15 and number 23 PA at the beginning. Now this would indicate an original registration. However, if this was originally registered in 1958, it shouldn't be in the online records. As we look through, we notice that the registration wasn't taken out until 1981. Now this is entirely legal. We see there's Copyright Office correspondence, and notice another title, Plan 9 from Outer Space, with the 9 spelled out, N-I-N-E. So we're going to put in that and see what results we come up with. I paste in the title from the computer's internal memory. We click Begin Search, and we find this time we have 21 entries instead of 23. However, we will find that there are, as entries 6 and 7, 2 different renewals. Now we saw before with the registration that one of the registrations was for the trailer and the other for the feature film itself. So let's click on number 6 because it's first. This number ends 112906. That was not the number we saw on the registration for the feature. This is a renewal on the trailer. However, this time on the second one, this one ends 102338. Now that one does match the registration taken out in 1958. So this film was renewed. It was renewed in 1986, which is 28 years after the 1958 date that copyright began. So these are timely renewals.